The Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Real Doctor Who fans with real Doctor Who opinions.
Hello and welcome to the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast, episode 319 of the podcast. I am Brett, and this is yet again a solo edition of the podcast. My friends Liam and Legion are no longer stuck inside the time vortex. However, they have been questioned by a couple of Jadoon for petting a Naimon in a non-petting Naimon zone. So, that being said, this is still a solo podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be looking over an article from the Radio Times that focused on Peter Davison's reaction to the Bi-Generation, as well as a nice fan thread and on the subject as well too, and then give my thoughts, my rational, sane, possibly sane or insane thoughts on this topic. So sit back, relax, grab your sonic screwdrivers, adjust your bow tie, and join us for this TARDIS-worthy adventure. Thank you for tuning into the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. For more episodes, please check us out on podcasts such as Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, whatever. You can email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. You can tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. Stay tuned for more Doctor Who goodness, including monthly Big Finish reviews when we get back to those, audio commentary, retro reviews, and beyond. So, yes, thank you for downloading and listening to this podcast. And, I like this article that started popping up multiple places in my life. And I actually was looking at the Twitter reviews and thoughts on the Peter Davison on regeneration or bi-generation type of a thing. And I think it's quite interesting because, at least for me, I think that was the point in the Giggle episode that I questioned whether really jumping on into Doctor Who in the future. I mean, is it a deal breaker? I don't know. I'd like to go through this article and then go through some chat and then give my thoughts as I see fit. Again, if you'd like to reach out to the show, I'll send a text message. No, send an email to alhambraaudio@gmail.com. That is ALHAMBRA audio@gmail.com. You can agree, disagree. I'd love to hear from you. Anyway, I'm gonna dive into this. So way back the 12th of April of 2024, we have this article by the Radio Times, Doctor Who's Peter Davison on Bi-Generation. I don't know why they did that. And, the interesting thing about fans is they are cherry picking, especially one line. And I'm not sure why they, I'm curious if it's the line, if they're trying to get people to, go against what Peter Davison said, and maybe use this as a reason to ignore anything that he said. But one of the things is he said, regarding David Tennant, mid-article, people are pulling out the quote where he says, David, as in David Tennant, when he first did Doctor Who, he did it because he was a big fan of the series, even though his career was doing well. And he basically comes out and says that, I am not as huge of a fan of Doctor Who so then the other one that they're pulling out is, I'm a fan of Doctor Who, but I'm not as mad as a fan as, say, David Tennant. The Bi-Generation basically apparently means that my Doctor still exists. And, I understand, and I like that Peter Davison in this article basically says, this means that I can be pulled back at any time as my current self, which TV-wise might make more sense. I know that the BBC did something with a memory TARDIS or whatever. I have no interest in ever watching any of those episodes, period. I don't think that they're canon. Again, because of Chris Chibnall, I guess we can pick and choose what our canon is and what our canon is not. And and also what RTD has said, especially in that first episode, The Star Beast, where, people can be right whenever, which, again, some people were saying and making accusations that he is attacking the fans for that statement. I'm not sure if I'd go that far as attacking the fans, but at the end of the day, this is a show that should be escapism and we should be enjoying it. And if we're not enjoying the new series of the show, well, I think we need to go back and just start, enjoying the classic series that we grew up loving. And it's quite interesting because over the past 2 weeks, as I have not been podcasting, I've been following along some of this drama regarding Gamergate 2, I guess. And, it's so interesting to listen to both sides because I am not a gamer. I don't choose to waste my time playing games and stuff like that. But the interesting thing about this Gamergate thing is I feel as though one side is basically demanding that you like what they are putting out, and the other side says, hey, we have money and we choose to spend our money where we want to. If you don't start making things the way that we like you to, then we're not going to give you money. At which the other side says, well, you're only doing that because you're, islamophobe and you're a horrible human being because these games that you are boycotting have, this kind of person and this kind of person and that. And I think that when you start telling your audience what they will like, I think that is the biggest problem right there. And at least for me, if Doctor Who's going to start, Disney, Doctor Who or whatever is going to start telling me that I have to like it, when you demand me to like your show and the imperfections in the show, like I want to like the imperfections the way that I see them. Kind of like how Paul Cornell kind of sort of made a discontinuity guide and then made money off of it. And then has come and said that, there's never been any continuity about Doctor Who. And why are you complaining? Well, then why did you decide to make money off of it unless, it benefited you? I don't know. That's just another gripe that I have about Paul Cornell, but whatever. Anyway, I think there is some sense about doing this by generation thing. It just depends on if we are going to be able to get any more doctors in their current age state, or is this just a toy? Somebody on Twitter basically said this is a way that they can dump, and it's a very thoughtful tweet. This is a way that RTD, but mainly Disney, can take all 60 years of continuity and essentially dump it on the David Tennant 14th Doctor so that the Ncuti Doctor has none of that baggage, meaning that he has, we don't have to reference shows that aren't on Disney Plus. And I think that is, in my opinion, a very scary situation because now you're saying it all matters. And if you watched the show previously, it doesn't matter. It can matter and it doesn't have to matter. And then if you haven't watched the show, it also doesn't matter. I think that, why continue the show in all honesty? This is a legitimate question. Why continue the show in all honesty if you're going to diminish the show? And some people have said, hey, wait for the first season, see if it's okay. And I like that thought because, again, maybe we're jumping to conclusions. Maybe I'm being a little bit too rash. It is a very interesting thing to discuss. But I think that this bi-generation thing, I think needs to be undone. I think it needs to be undone just like the Timeless Child needs to be undone. And for some reason, RTD refuses to undo the Timeless Child and is doubling down. And I think that those decisions are going to be met with much polarization, whether, it was intended or not. I think it's going to polarize fans one way or another. You're going to have the fans that absolutely love the bi-generation and the Chibnall era, whatever that was, and the Flux. And you're going to have fans that don't. And I think kind of like what I've been watching with this Gamergate thing is anybody who doesn't like the bi-generation and the Chibnall, whatever happened there. I mean, there was a lot of interesting stuff happening there. But I don't know. I think it's going to polarize the fans, and I think you're going to either see people reverting back to the classic show, and then you're going to have the fans that are going to just lap everything up regardless, and then you're going to have those that like all that stuff. And you can like what you like. I know what I like, and I'm not embarrassed by it. But at the same time, if I'm being told you're going to like this, and I don't agree with the philosophy and stuff like that, I am going to take my money elsewhere. I really hope that Big Finish does not choose to do anything revolving around this bi-generation thing. So as I pull up Twitter, so that was just my thoughts about the Radio Times article. I'll link it in the show's description if you'd like to look at it, and if I also remember it. Here is the chat on Twitter, and I think a lot of people on the chat on Twitter basically agree. It says to undo 60 plus years of legacy, that's why they did it. And I don't agree with it. I don't think they did it to undo 60 years of legacy, but it can be seen as undoing legacy. A lot of people say that, you're not alone, Peter. Some people are saying that this is just Peter Davison taking the piss out of David Tennant, his son-in-law. And I'm scratching my head at that. I mean, Peter Davison was the original, fan that became the Doctor. And yeah, he might not be as massive fan as his son-in-law, but he's still a massive fan. And again, doing this takes out that 10th Doctor, 5th Doctor, I can't think of what it was, the Red Nose Day thing. I think that takes certain special things out of this whole thing. And again, I don't like this, in all honesty. It's some people say, it's unique and unexpected for a new era of the show, and you don't have to love it, but it isn't rocket science. I don't know. I disagree with that. A lot of people are just like, I agree with you. Again, a lot of people are kind of rethrowing the whole what Peter Davison said back in his face, almost it seems like they're trying to discredit him. And I don't think that is, I don't know. Some people would say that is just people who are new to the show and maybe Doctor Who tourists, not actually fans, but just happen to be here at the moment, and then they're going to move on with their life. And that's an interesting discussion to talk about, is people who run the show. Maybe Chris Chibnall and his writers were Doctor Who tourists, not actually Doctor Who fans. And that's be an interesting thing to dive into, to figure out how many of his writing staff continue to write, BBC books and or audio plays for Big Finish, or if they just happen to have a job, similarly to what the actor who played Ryan said. I have a job. I was looking for a job. I now have a job. This is my job. And it was played for laughs at the San Diego Comic-Con, and I took immense insult out of that, because I think it was either tone deaf for him saying that, or it was, it could have been anything. It could have been Oompa Loompa number 4, and I would have been fine with it. The Tin Dog Podcast said, I feel the same. They did it for a reason. The character is too much baggage since 96 onward, and the show needed to find a place to dump it, so it's all on Tennant. So the new bloke can be guilt-free for #Disney. And I think, and it's going to be quite interesting, I think this whole Disney, not merger, but financier, is, I think we don't really know the full aspect of it all. I think a lot of people think that it's going to be one of those things where we initially thought Disney is going to be budding out and they're just financing it. And they're going to be putting in some notes and stuff like that and some revisionist stuff. But I actually think that the possibility of Disney's involvement, and I think a lot of people also believe it's going to be a little bit more than it was initially believed. And it's going to be interesting when Big Finish goes to renew their license for Doctor Who. Are we going to start getting Disney Plus logos on Big Finish items? I don't know. I know they don't own it. It is just financing. But I don't know. Disney's a very powerful company. They buy up lots of IPs. And currently they have been negligent in providing fans of those IPs quality entertainment. So it's going to be interesting. Somebody said that he's literally saying from full context that he doesn't know regarding like this whole bi-generation thing. He says, newer fans need to go back and watch Tom Baker's regeneration into Peter Davidson. The Watcher now makes less sense than the bi-generation. And I know Liam and Legion and Humphrey have listened to the Watcher audiobook and thoroughly love it, written by Matthew Waterhouse. In all honesty, as I was listening to them talk about that whole Watcher thing, it makes no sense to me. And maybe it's because I haven't listened to it, but I don't know. Somebody says, the bi-generation didn't work for me. I think it lacked drama and sadness, and losing a favorite Doctor felt very gimmicky. And that's an interesting thing if it's kind of a gimmick. Like, again, are they trying to get gimmick? Are they trying to do gimmicks to keep people around or keep Doctor Who relevant? Again, the Doctor Who, the IP took off massively in 2010, 2011 when it became a really, cool to like in the United States. And then slowly during the 11th Doctor's era, it slowly started fading. And then you had Peter Capaldi's era, and it slowly started fading. And then Jodie Whittaker's era started off with a boom and then, crashed and burned. And you can't put it on the actress. You have to put it on the writing talent and the direction. And there's only one man who can really be held accountable for that. And the frustrating thing is RTD refuses to keep him accountable for that. So that's another thing to kind of think about. Anyway, somebody says that, can we hear Colin Baker's opinion on this now? And I really like that discussion and thought process is, what do the other doctors have to think about it? Everybody have their own opinion. I know, the person who I share my birthday with, Colin Baker, I'd love to hear what his thoughts are. I'm going to guess that he's going to be a tad bit more open on it than Peter Davidson is. And I think Peter Davidson, out of all the classic doctors, is the more passionate fan compared to everybody else. I think Sylvester McCoy would be fine with it. I don't think Tom Baker actually cares or knows what's going on. Tom is just Tom. And then somebody says that they like The Timeless Child, this is greater than, or The Timeless Child is greater than this regeneration. That is an interesting premise to set up. What's worse, The Timeless Child or bi-generation? I think both of them broke the show in some aspect. So I don't know. Some people said that they love it, and they said that, I hope that they will change it back soon. Maybe next generation. I don't know. And it says, somebody said, a little bit later on in the thread, I like most of what he has done since returning, but bi-generation was a profoundly terrible idea. And I agree. And then again, we get, maybe just wait for the first season. It's called, wait for it, storytelling. So there's a lot of ways that we can look at it. And I'm just going to leave this podcast with this. And somebody has a screen caption of the Isaac Newton as seen in the second special. And it says, agreed. Not that many, agreed that may not have been positive, but it was more than made up for by the greatest joke in Doctor Who history being premiered the week before. And it has Isaac Newton. And then it says screen caption, Mavity. I don't know. I don't see that as a joke. I think that was done for a reason. I don't know why. And I just think it's odd. I disagree with that being the greatest joke in history. I think that is possibly... I think that needs to be undone too, because it made absolutely no sense. And in the review that me and Liam did, I even described that the entirety of Isaac Newton's thing, from it going from a silly hijinks thing to suddenly, terror beyond all measures of terror, just set up the episode to be just not good at all. So again, what are your thoughts on the whole bi-generation thing? What do you think about Peter Davidson's opinions in the Radio Times article? Again, email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet the show at Alhambra Podcast. DMs are open. And until next time, I will be seeing you in time.
You have been listening to the Doctor Who Alhambra Podcast. Doctor Who is owned and trademarked by the BBC. Doctor Who Alhambra is not affiliated with the BBC or Big Finish. No infringement is intended. Visit our website at alhambrapodcast.weebly.com or email the show at alhambraaudio@gmail.com. Tweet us at Alhambra Podcast. That is ALHAMBRA Podcast. Thank you.